Hi, this is Carl again, and this is part 5 of the discussion on Lingua language learning methodology. And what I want to talk about in this particular recording is the teaching of one foreign language to primary school children. Now, I have had experience in teaching young children both within mainstream education and privately, and I do have to say that up to the present day, the teaching of children within a private setting has arguably been much more effective and fruitful than my experiences in mainstream education. So what I want to talk about here are some of the techniques and some of the methodologies and some of the implementations which would arguably make one foreign language learning more effective within the mainstream sector. Now, it often baffles me why, when I think back, for example, to my first foreign holiday in Spain after I began to learn Spanish in 1996, the holiday was in 1998, I remember engaging in conversation in Spanish with a boy up around 11 or 12 years of age. The boy then picked up on the fact that I was a native speaker of English and began speaking to me in my own language. And I thought it was quite fascinating that a child of such a young age was able to converse with me about everyday things on such a basic level of communication, when at that time UK children wouldn't have been able to speak, for example, Spanish at the same level of degree, unless of course the child in question had been brought up partly in a foreign country or had foreign parents. But if we take, for example, a child with English-speaking parents who doesn't have any experience of living in a foreign country, then we can fairly say that it wouldn't have been the case, i.e. that the child wouldn't have been able to speak Spanish at the same level as this 11 or 12-year-old Spanish boy had been speaking to me in English. Now, if we consider the teaching of one foreign language in primary schools, what we have to bear in mind is the fact that the youngest child is, let's say, 4 years of age in reception, and the oldest child in year 6 being 11 years of age. We have to bear in mind the fact that the 4-year-old will have different learning styles and learning preferences or activity preferences in contrast with the learner styles of the 11-year-old. But in addition to that, what we have to bear in mind is that the form of communication, the level of language which is used by the teacher in explaining any aspect of a foreign language would be understood much differently by an 11-year-old than it would by a 4-year-old, because obviously the 4-year-old isn't as linguistically developed as the 11-year-old, and therefore this would make it very difficult for a teacher to instruct in a modern foreign language to an after-school club in which the youngest person was 4 years of age and the oldest person was 11 years of age. So therefore, I think even if the modern foreign language instruction does occur after school, then there has to be some subdivision of ages so that the language learning process can occur much more effectively, and each person is given the opportunity to work with peers of a similar age group, rather than the teacher being put in a position whereby parents might feel as though some children are progressing much more quickly than others, and are therefore requiring from the teacher that he or she produce more work for the older end of the class to do, because obviously the 4, the 5, the 6-year-olds don't understand the level of communication that the older end, the 9, 10 and 11-year-olds would understand, and would therefore either require extra work for the children who are 4, 5 or 6 years of age, or require some different activity whereby they could work amongst themselves with or without the teacher. But obviously, as I say, if you do include a wide age range, that is to say between 4 and 11 years of age, into one classroom environment, then obviously that puts a great deal of pressure on the teacher, and as I've just mentioned, makes the learning process less likely to be as effective as both the majority of learners and the teacher would like. Also, if we consider the fact that instruction in modern foreign language can occur after school, then obviously this is a time when the majority of the younger children are very tired, the levels of concentration aren't as high, and therefore the likelihood that the learners will take in as much information as the teacher would prefer is very low indeed. So obviously an after-school club can bring together children of a similar age, allow, let's say, the 4, the 5 and the 6-year-olds who might know one another to come together and just enjoy learning a little bit of Spanish or French after school. The same applying to the 9, 10 and 11-year-olds, but we do have to bear in mind, as I just said, that the levels of concentration aren't as high. But in addition to that, what is more detrimental is that children can use it as an excuse to mess about. The parents can use it as an excuse to leave their children at school behind for an extra hour while they go about their daily business, carrying out certain chores. So we have to remember that the main focus of an after-school Spanish club is indeed for the children to learn Spanish and do so in an enjoyable atmosphere with enlivening and enjoyable activities, rather than the object of the Spanish tuition or whichever modern foreign language it is to be defeated, because the children have got it into their heads that this is an opportunity to mess about, or an opportunity for parents to leave their children behind at school for just 1 extra hour. I also believe that funding should be provided by the government for the teaching of modern foreign languages to primary school children. That training should be undertaken by teachers who wish to instruct modern foreign languages to children, because obviously the learning styles and the learning preferences and the ability to engage the children and maintain their level of interest is obviously very important. If I now go to a situation whereby I taught a child or children, for example siblings, in a private environment, then I have to say that the learning is much more effective, because obviously the one-to-one individual contact time between the teacher and the learner is much higher than it would be in a classroom environment, where obviously the teacher has to try to in a way discipline the class and keep as much attention as possible, give individual contact time to however many children there are in the class, and obviously if it's a one-to-one situation, a private language learning setting, then obviously the teacher has more control over the attention of the child. The parent can obviously decide at what time during the day the lesson takes place. The activities can be tailored to the individual preferences of the child, and in addition to that, what the teacher is able to do is to have close contact to the parent in his or her home and be able to give sound advice and very good information as regards which activities the parent and the child can undertake outside the four walls of the classroom environment. And this is something that Lingua Genesis has put together for parents and children to use, lists of different suggestions for activities which obviously tailor for a wide range of learning needs amongst children. So I'll just leave it there for now. As I say, I was just pointing out some of the advantages and disadvantages of teaching children. There is a lot more information available on the Lingua Genesis website, www.linguagenesis.org.uk, on the methodologies and the strategies and techniques which Lingua Genesis does use to teach children. So do feel free to consult the website for more information there.